Welcome back to the Town Church Studios, where the ceiling is high, the color is white, and the temperature is cool.
This changed. That was not true last week.
This one's more true, though. I feel
That's
a little
true.
more comfortable because last week was just all lies.
Although there is a stain behind you there.
Off-white?
Yeah,
Would that
it's
be
a
better
little
color?
off-white.
Dirty white.
Dirty white.
And there is coffee this week, so
Yeah, that's true.
I'm going to find one that sticks. I'm going to keep trying different
Please
ones.
don't. Just please don't.
I am joined here by Vince Black, elder pastor of the Town Church, Betty Horiuchi, director of youth and college, and Kirsten Black, who has some ministry experience and can represent the women's voice, which I need badly.
You need a woman's voice?
I don't have a woman's voice.
You don't. That's true.
Thank you.
You don't mean like physically a
Right,
woman's. Yeah,
right.
you mean like
Perspective?
perspective.
Can we belabor this anymore?
Uh-huh.
The point of this podcast is to look more at the passage that was preached the day before. So we are still in Matthew 6 for today. And we also want to see what of God do we see here that raises our affections for him. But before we get to that content, here's a really important question. I want to know, what do we decide? The question was, I want to know, this is what it is. I want to know what type of casserole is your favorite? Okay.
I didn't know we were landing on this one.
You landed there. We all were like, no, that's horrible.
I wanted
doing.
if you could be an animal, what animal would you be?
If you were an animal in a casserole, what would you be?
A tuna, I guess.
Frog and tater tot.
All right, so you have to answer this. What is your favorite type of casserole?
I'm going to go first so that no one else can take my answer.
Mine's breakfast casserole.
I was going to say the only casserole that I really like is breakfast casserole, like eggs, bacon, cheese, tater tots, onions. That's about it.
That does sound good. Okay, so you can't double up. So
I said mine first.
No,
I
you
jumped
did.
in.
Okay, Betty.
I'm not a big consumer of casseroles, but the other week...
A connoisseur,
yeah,
would you
I'm
say?
not a casserole connoisseur, but the other week my friend made an enchilada casserole that was really good.
Yeah.
Isn't that just enchiladas?
Pretty much,
Yep.
but it's like not in an enchilada form, but
Okay.
it tastes like enchiladas. It was great, very dairy full, and I said that day, this is my last day of eating dairy. That hasn't been true since, but it would have been a great last dairy meal if it were true.
So you're sticking with breakfast casserole?
No,
Vince?
I'll do pizza casserole.
That doesn't exist. You have to say one that actually exists.
A lasagna casserole.
That doesn't. No, that's not a casserole.
Well, what
that's
defines a
just lasagna.
casserole?
Yeah.
Because that
Does
maybe
it have
could
to
be
have like
casserole.
a crust on the top?
Does it have to have some
No.
cereal sprinkled over the top of it?
Not necessarily,
crushed up?
but it could. It could be frosted flakes.
All right. Frosted flake casserole.
No.
I'm not playing along with your. I was going to say dumb.
Wonderful
I'm not gonna,
questions.
I don't want our editors to edit out that word. Dumb question.
You know what? I'm coming up with some really good questions lately.
When
Yeah.
are we going to do those?
Which ones?
Yeah. What's your favorite casserole, Eric?
I actually don't mind casseroles for the most part.
Fine.
I like green bean casserole at Thanksgiving. You know, cream of mushroom soup in there and some of those crispy French onion things on top and the green beans. And
You are Midwest.
You put that with some
You are
stuffing and
you are
some
Midwest.
turkey.
How about tuna casserole?
Certain variations I don't mind. Yeah, it's okay.
Because when my mom used to make egg noodles, boiled eggs that were cut up.
Eggs in the...
Yeah. Well, it's egg noodles with
There's a
eggs.
Levitical
Oh, you
law
didn't add
against
this
that,
earlier.
I think.
Tuna,
You can't
some
boil...
celery, some mayonnaise,
No, yeah.
and then some cheese on top. It may
Yeah.
have been like
Oh.
cream of celery soup. I
That
don't
was
know.
she was
but,
cleaning out the refrigerator to
you
make
know,
that
we had
one.
that on the regular. So, would you like that?
No, that one
Yeah,
doesn't
you
sound
would
as good.
too.
I'm going to move on.
That's disgusting. Let's talk about fasting. After that question, I want to talk about fasting.
That's a great segue, Vince. How about you give us a recap from the text?
All right. Verses 16 through 18, just a few short verses in this string of other instructions from Jesus about really the instruction is not as much about giving money or prayer or fasting as it is about the heart behind those things and the motivation for why we're doing them. So Jesus talks about how we are not to be practicing our righteousness in front of others so that they would see us. And so 4 weeks ago, giving, last week prayer, and then this week fasting. So the same instruction is there. They were not to be fasting so that others would see us. So he starts out with, again, the same pattern, the self-righteous or the inappropriate act of fasting and how it was done. These hypocrites who are trying to be noticed for their fasting by putting on gloomy faces and walking around in to be seen in that way. Jesus talks then about the reward. So same pattern, the self-righteous act, the reward, and their reward is the same as all the others. Their reward is that they have been noticed. And then he moves to what the righteous practice is. So he says, instead of trying to be seen and noticed, go about your day in a normal way. Anoint your head and wash your face and be seen as just a normal daily function, so that your fasting is not noticed by others, but by God, and God is the one who rewards you.
What's that reward?
Nearness to Him, that we get to be near Him. So that's the reward we receive from not trying to gain recognition from others, and at the same time, not seeking the favor of God. Our reward in that is being near Him. We're unhindered by sin and near Him.
Which is the reward for all three of these?
Yeah.
Right? It's the same for all three?
Same.
Okay. And one other piece of clarification, fasting is not something that we do because it's convenient. Like you had made the example yesterday that if you skip breakfast, that's your normal routine, then you're skipping breakfast is not you fasting.
Right.
What separates that from actual fasting?
Like skipping breakfast?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I think it's intentionality. So it's a set aside time, a set aside reason for drawing near to God, or at least being open and aware to the idea that God could be, you could draw near to God. So it's intentionality.
Okay. I want to explore this a bit. This one's a little bit different because it's a topic that many of us are less familiar with, fasting in general. And so we have Jesus' instructions here, which Vince just gave a recap about, but instructions about a topic that many of us don't have a lot of experience in or know exactly what it is or how to go about it, what it isn't. And so I want to explore this topic a little bit more today. And I want to start this way. I'd love to hear from all of you what your personal experience with fasting is. My assumption is it's different, a little bit different for everybody. I want to know what has been your experience with it. What have you found to be difficult or challenging? What have you found to be beautiful? Have you experienced this reward of nearness to God through it or not? If you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit, what's been your personal experience with fasting?
I'm going to wait to the end because I have a question about my own ways that I'd love to hear from y'all. So I'd love to hear from you first.
I think for me, for the majority of my life, fasting has not been, it's not been a discipline I've practiced very often. I've done it here and there over the course of my Christian life, probably more of a discipline or a duty, because I knew that a Christian should. I think that's changed for me over this last year, after we lost Ezra. I think there's been a piece of me just feeling this sense of maybe disappointment in who I thought God was or maybe wanted Him to be, and feeling this sense of there's got to be more than what I'm understanding or experiencing. And so as I said last week, I think our options when we're in those places are we can either walk away or we can wrestle with God. And so the only thing I knew to do was wrestle with God. And so last spring, I just started a regular practice of fasting once a week for the intent of just trying to gain a better understanding of, God, who are you? Because right now you feel really painful, and right now I'm pretty disappointed in who you are. And I know that's on me. I know that's my disappointment of unmet expectations. But just trying to gain an understanding of what am I missing.
How regular is that, did you say?
Once a week.
Okay.
Once a week. And I'm not to a point yet that I really look forward to it. I'm at a point still where Like last week, I had planned to fast one day, and someone said, "Hey, you want to go grab lunch?" I was like, "Yeah." And then I was like, "Oh, shoot, that was the day I was going to fast." And so it's not enough of a rhythm yet that it's just, it's triggered in my mind. So I just moved it to a different day last week. But it's something that I'm still dipping my toes into and trying to figure out what that looks like. In a sense, just to try to heal my heart and understand who God is in all of the struggle.
Have you noticed some of those hopes for why you're doing fasting happening, or does it feel like it's too early, or it's just an open question?
I mean, I think the thing that I've noticed is that I've been more maybe aware of some maybe patterns of sin in my life that I didn't even recognize as sin, or thought patterns, ways that I viewed God that were just wrong. And so I think the Spirit has definitely opened my eyes to a lot of those things. And so at this point, it's been primarily spending a lot of time confessing and then trying to take time to just listen. That was a practice that I had started before we lost Ezra. It was just really trying to understand what it means to listen to God. And so I spent a season of every time I would sit down and just create space to listen, writing down everything I thought I might have heard, or maybe what I thought the Spirit was trying to lead, and writing it all down, because I'm like, I don't know how to discern the Spirit's voice. I don't know what that looks like, and I don't know if it's just me creating things or if it's actually the Spirit leading me. And so I started that practice, and then when we lost Ezra, I got angry and I threw away that notebook. And so I'm starting to try to step back into that and just create space to listen and just try to learn again what it is to discern the voice of God.
When you fast, do you do something instead of eating, or is it more of a moment by moment throughout the day sort of thing, or both?
I think it depends on the day. I have the luxury right now of being home and not working, and my kids are in school, and so a lot of days are really full, but I've been trying to schedule it around days that I don't have a lot on the calendar so that I can sit and really take time to listen and to pray and to read. And so it varies day to day. There are some weeks that there's a lot on the calendar, and so the most recent time, I just had quite a few things scheduled. So in the times when I was home, it was 30 or 45 minutes. It was just, sitting down during that time and committing to not even do some of my normal daily tasks, like, cleaning or laundry or whatever it is, and trying to take those times to be really intentional to sit and pray, to read. I'm listening to an audiobook, things like that, that can kind of direct and guide my heart.
Yeah, thanks. You said intentional many times, which is something I think we're learning about fasting. It's not something you just slip in to make it as convenient, but it's what's the word? Abrupt? Nope. Okay. Like if you have a schedule and a routine and something interrupts it, well, what's the different word for interrupt? Okay, whatever that word is, that's what it is. Disrupt. That's what it is. Disrupt. Okay, we got that
Different
out.
prefix. Yeah. So
that was hard for me.
Yeah, that was. You should take a break.
I should. Betty, would you mind talking?
Yes. Fasting is truthfully something for me that I don't have a lot of experience in. And a lot of that comes to with not using this as an excuse either, like not seeing it taught a lot in my life. Growing up, I feel like when it was addressed in church, it was kind of one of those, it's in this passage, so I'll acknowledge it and then move on. And in NAVS, I know we had one talk 1 week in my 4 years within the ministry that it was like focused on, but still it just didn't have a deep understanding and wasn't really something that I pursued understanding on my own. But there were different seasons where I'd have friends who were doing like fasts with their church or with other people in their lives, and they wanted to invite me into that. And I would try, But I just feel like my sense of discipline and intentionality wasn't really there. I was like, oh, they're doing it, so I better do it too. But they would like go to their church and pray with people in their church, and I would just not do that. Or with some friends, I remember we did something and I just used that as like, oh, this is really convenient because now I have more time to do homework rather than eat. And I was like, that's also not the focus either. And so I think it's something that I've wanted to understand more and wanted like intentionality in my own life, just on my own to incorporate that in, and something that I have like now begun like planning and thinking about too, and wanting that intentionality in it, because it's not something I've understood well, and it's not something I've known how to incorporate well either. And I've heard people who do it, but it hasn't been something that on my own I've really been disciplined in pursuing aside from those instances.
So what's been your general view of fasting?
I feel like I knew that there is the added element of it does allow us to draw near to the Lord. And I've heard it said directly too, that it reminds us of the spiritual hunger that we have, and to acknowledge that and seek the Lord in that. But I've just heard those things kind of in passing. And so I've known that that's true, but I don't know if that's really resonated well with me, or really known how to, okay, how do I really consider these truths and focus on these truths in my life? But even thinking of it now too, like as we've been talking about prayer, I've noticed that that's a rhythm in my life too that's been really difficult recently. So the desire to have this time to fast, to draw near to the Lord and to strengthen prayer is something now, seeing like maybe reasons for fasting isn't something I've acknowledged as much before. And that's like maybe where some of the confusion has come from too, and known that's always associated with prayer, but haven't always seen the direct relationship.
Yeah, I think similar to you, I think I've seen fasting as something that's very, very optional growing up. It's something you could choose to do if you wanted to do, and maybe you might have a good reason to do it. But it sure seems like with Jesus assuming that we're doing it, it's not just something that's optional. There's greater weight to it to be a regular, however we define regular. But it isn't just something that's out there that maybe as I as a believer, I'm struggling today. Maybe I started the question at the very beginning.
I think it's the Lord's punishment.
For you eating green bean casserole.
I'm going to stop talking for a little bit.
I was going to say, I think that when you look, when you take a deep dive into fasting, though, what you see is that it's really a practice that our church fathers and the heroes of faith always practiced. Like it was assumed that they were doing, and it's really just been in the last century, in kind of our culture of excess in the West, that it's fallen off. And so it was a very understood practice in the church up until maybe the 1900s. And so I think we can look at that and see that it's not just that it's just that Christians today in the West don't practice that, but it was something that many of, again, the heroes of faith had a regular rhythm. And as you read through some of their writings and stuff, you can see that was a normal part of their life.
Yeah. All right, so here's my question. I want feedback. If you know me well, you know that I will miss meals all the time, but not for righteousness. I just don't eat. I forget to eat. I don't prepare food. I don't eat. So I've thought about this a lot this last week. Fasting is challenging for me because when I have set aside intentional time to do it, it doesn't feel any different than my normal day, because in my normal day I don't eat meals. So I've struggled to see the benefit of that particular piece of it, of abstaining from food for the purpose of drawing near to God. The drawing near to God part resonates with me, but the abstaining from food, I'm like, well, I don't do that anyway. So what do I do? What do I do? I need help. And I know Kirsten's response is, yeah, you should probably eat food instead of not eating food. But that has been a struggle for me as I think about fasting. It doesn't carry the same kind of weight for me. Thoughts? Reprimands?
You should eat food.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
You may need to do longer fasts, maybe.
Yeah.
Because you still eat every day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Kirsten reminds me to.
You're an odd duck. Like, what? You don't get hungry?
I do.
Yeah.
Often I don't get hungry, but I start having other issues like headaches or that
So your
sort of
body
thing.
is still reacting to
Yeah,
not
yeah.
having food.
But I can endure a lot,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I can endure that, like a grumbling stomach for a long time. In fact, yesterday, this is a funny moment. As I was preaching, my stomach started growling. As I'm preaching through this, my stomach was growling. I'm like, am I fasting? Maybe I'm fasting. I don't know.
I was definitely hungry as we were talking about food through
Yeah.
fasting. Yes.
I mean, I think that it's stepping into it with intentionality.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, I think it has to be, it's not just the practice of not eating or the
Yep.
malpractice of not eating, but, it's maybe picking one day a week that you say, today, my intent in not eating is fasting. And maybe it's setting an alarm that it goes off every hour to remind you to be praying and remind you of the intentionality behind it. But it's stepping into it with some purpose rather than just kind of being willy-nilly about it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the needed, and I thought about that this week. That's the needed correction for me, is the intentionality piece of what it is I'm doing. We've spent time fasting. I mean, even as a church, we've put out different ways that we can be fasting together, and those times I've always engaged in that. And it's the intentionality of engaging in what we're doing, but the food part is not something that really strikes a chord with me. So it is the intentionality of a devoted time of prayer or seeking God in that.
It does raise an interesting question, though. 'Cause I was going to say, well, maybe for you it's coffee or something that's not food, but you made the strong case yesterday that biblical fasting is fasting from food specifically.
Yeah, nourishment.
Yeah, nourishment, which coffee, I don't know. Maybe not. Yeah.
What's your rhythm of fasting look like, or your not rhythm?
Yeah, good question. Growing up, I don't remember ever fasting growing up. High school, college, even beyond, maybe, but I don't remember. There's a lot that I don't remember. I don't remember that for sure. My rhythm changed a couple years ago, though. Can I mention a book that I mention a lot?
Sure. Habits of Grace. By
Yeah,
David
you guys
Mathis.
did. Yeah. And that pushed me. It pushed me a lot. And so
Habits of Grace by David Mathis.
we carry it in our church library. There's a section on fasting I think is fantastic. I think the whole book's fantastic. But it affected my view of fasting. He makes the case that one of the primary reasons is to sharpen our affections. I mean, you mentioned this yesterday too, this hunger, the spiritual hunger. So I have tried to skip just one meal a week. And the weeks where I find that it works the best is when I take that time instead of eating to pray. There are other weeks that I just take that time to be more productive. And those are failed weeks in fasting because it completely misses the point. But when I am able to pray, it seems like I'm at the point. There haven't been points where I thought, wow, God really met me in an extraordinary way. I definitely get hungry. And so those hunger pains are a reminder that I want to hunger for nearness to God more than my body's hungering for food. And so it does remind me throughout the day to pray as I feel that hunger. But there haven't been like big revelations that God has given me.
And I wonder if that, you asked Kirsten the same question, if there
Yeah.
were, like, have you seen fruit from this? And I wonder if that's not the point. I'm trying to think through biblical examples where we see the person fasted and then God did some crazy miraculous thing because of it. I don't know if any examples come to mind right away. I wonder if it's the regular discipline of fasting and drawing near to God is the fruit, is the thing. So to step into a fast and think, and I'm going to get some amazing benefit from this, may be the wrong approach. But maybe it's us stepping into this and saying, I'm going to do this and meet with God regularly. And as I do that, that discipline is going to be the fruit of my time.
I mean, a prayer every time my stomach growls when I'm fasting is just, God, would you show me that, you actually will satisfy me more than whatever it is that I'm wanting. Because I guess the reality is that I find I step into fasting a lot of the times feeling like, yeah, God, you don't really actually satisfy me. Like I'd much rather have a turkey sandwich or whatever it is and have that instant gratification. So I need you to change my affections. I need you to change my heart so that I know that you actually will satisfy me. And I plead with him every time I fast that's my desire. That's my goal. That's my heart is just beginning to understand that God's enough and that I actually believe that. I don't just say it, but I actually believe it.
And it sure seems like that is consistent with the other rhythms or disciplines that we have, whether it's prayer or gathering corporately or Bible intake. These things mostly affect us little bit by little bit over years and decades and shape us in that way. So looking at fasting in that way certainly fits, I think, how we see the other ones.
Yeah, I think God can meet us, and he can do extraordinary things. We know that, right? We know that he can do extraordinary things in the process of our devotion to him. But and I mentioned this yesterday, I think if we move into it expecting a blessing, then it becomes a formula by which we're rubbing the genie's bottle to get what we want, right? And that's about me again. So that's exactly against what Jesus is teaching here. So to step into it, to see more of God, to see, to be drawn into his glory more is the point behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're so prone to looking for formulas and looking for, we do this and this happens. But I think we need to realize that fasting's not a sign of spiritual maturity, but it's a tool to grow in spiritual maturity. And so, viewing it as a tool rather than a sign, that helps me realize, okay, just because I fast doesn't necessarily mean that I'm mature. It means that I have a tool in my pocket to know how to move forward in maturity.
Yeah.
And I think one reason I've struggled with it before too, just kind of touches on what we were just talking about. Like I felt like I had to have this big end goal in sight and this big distinct reason for doing it that goes beyond just drawing near to God, but that it is this beautiful thing that as we continue in this discipline, we have that as a tool, as you were just saying, Kirsten, and that it's more than just, it's because I want this thing at the very end of it. And to have that expectation, it just creates a formula and think that we have just this genie in a bottle, as you were saying.
There are a lot of tools like that are not commands necessarily that we see in Scripture. I think solitude is another one. Silence and solitude is another practice that we see people engaging in that's a tool. I think to be still is something that not many of us do well. To be silent and still with intentionality is extremely hard. Try putting your phone or your watch aside and sitting still and silent for 30 minutes. And I would bet that most of us would probably be looking for our phone way more quickly than it's 30 minutes. Because we're just not used to it. But we see Jesus doing that, getting away by himself in solitude. So it's a practice that we're not commanded necessarily to do, but it's a tool that engages our hearts and our minds to see more of who God is. It's setting aside some things that we've grown accustomed to, and with those things set aside, our mind or whatever that space is freed up to engage with who God is.
Well, and I mean, I think if we consider the fact that Jesus felt like he needed to fast and he needed that solitude, if it's something that he knew that he needed, it's absolutely something we need to consider.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, here's the Son of God doing it, and I think he's leading us by his example. And so I think when we're not fasting, and I have not yet experienced what this is, so I'm not saying from a point of knowledge, but I think when we're not fasting, we're missing out on something that God has for us.
Yeah, a good gift that he's given us to engage in. And I think all these, like solitude, is a good gift that he's given us to engage in, but it's challenging, and we want to push against it.
Okay, so Jesus assumes that believers are fasting. If I, as a believer, never fast, how do I think about that? Is that a sin issue? Is it not a sin issue, but I'm missing out on something different. How should I think about that?
So you're wanting to create laws. I see where this is going. You want a law to live by. Is it sin or not sin? Tell me so I can do what I'm supposed to do.
Laws sometimes make some things a whole lot easier. Yeah.
I don't know how to answer that, but I think what we need to do is we need to ask the Lord, like, what do you have for me in this? Like, how would you like me to grow in this? And what would you say to me? I mean, I think in general, we're pretty pain avoidant here in the West, and we forget that Jesus was the man of sorrows, and so I think there's things in us that we identify with Christ when we're struggling and when we're suffering, and so I think there are things that we will receive through the practice of fasting that we would not receive otherwise.
Yeah, I think that nails it. I think I'm not sure if I'd move in the direction. We could probably talk about it. Is it sin or not? But I would say it is we're depriving ourselves of a good gift that God desires to give us by not engaging in it.
Yeah, and we didn't talk about this before, but I'm curious about this too then. So what about prayer? If I as a believer never pray, I mean, so I might go down a different rabbit trail I don't want to do. But yeah.
You've already messed up your words multiple times, so just go ahead and do it now.
Well, because Jesus says giving, prayer, and fasting are in this triad that he's talking about, right? With doing it in secret, not looking for approval of others. These are things that are righteous acts that we do out of a place of already having righteousness in Jesus and not in order to gain righteousness. Yeah. So you see it with fasting, see it with prayer, and also with giving. And it seems like with talking about the heart motivations and wanting to be near to God, that these are gifts or graces that God gives us to be healthy, growing believers, and to not engage in them is somehow stunting or missing out or not receiving what God may have for us there for our good and for nearness to Him.
I think that's true. However, and you know this, but I think we have to interpret Scripture with Scripture. Mm-hmm. So this is not the isolated passage about prayer or fasting or giving that we would say, well, Jesus doesn't command it here, so I guess we never have to do it. So there are multiple places where Paul says, pray without ceasing. Mm-hmm. So the command is there that we are to be praying. Pray in this way. Jesus says in that passage about prayer, he says, pray then like this. So there is an instruction to pray. So we can't isolate these places and say, well, then therefore we cannot. It's not necessarily something we have to do. But I would say, let's take it out of the sin, not sin question. Let's say hypothetically, it's not a sin to not pray. You're still missing out on a good gift that God's given you to commune with Him. Mm-hmm. You get to be near Him. You get to have communion with Him, and you're missing out on that. I am missing out on that.
I wonder if using it more as like a litmus test for our own hearts and understanding that if I have no desire to pray, if I have no desire to fast, if I have no desire to give, or if my giving I know is kind of stingy and my prayers are hit or miss and I don't fast at all, like maybe that's more of a litmus test of my heart towards the Lord and understanding what it is to be a Christian. And so, and not to necessarily cause you to doubt faith necessarily, but to understand, okay, my heart towards the Lord is pretty weak. You know, that I'm not willing to step into these things that require faith. And so start with that as a launching pad and then see what the Spirit does in you with that.
Yeah, what would you say, though, then about people, and this is a reality, we've probably all met some, or maybe we are these people from time to time, who say medically or physically, physiologically, I'm unable to go without food. Fasting is a significant issue because I'm unable to go without food. So then what, Eric?
Or people that struggle with eating disorders and have disordered
the other
thoughts
side,
about food. We could put them in that category as well.
Yeah. Eric, let's hear your wisdom on this.
Oh, the questioned is becoming the questioner.
Huh.
I see.
Are you holding on to this with power?
No. It seems to me, this is just thinking off the top of my head, that food isn't the magical thing here. That our bodies are like addicted in a good way to food because we need it for our nourishment. If someone is struggling with an eating disorder or can't ingest food, I think it's worth thinking about what might be a corollary or that could be a substitute for food, or maybe as a certain type of food that I think it's important that we feel the loss of. So again, not that convenient, easy thing. Like I don't have jelly beans or something. Like maybe there's a jelly bean addict out there, but that shouldn't be really hard, I would think, overall. But what is it that we're actually going to feel that will be disruptive, like to Kirsten's point earlier? Not as a sign of how desperate we are, or like to prove to God how desperate we are, but yeah, maybe as that disruptor. So I don't know what that example would be. That'd probably be pretty specific to the particular individual. But I think the message shouldn't be because you struggle with a eating disorder, because you, for health reasons, need to eat, then you are not allowed to enjoy this gift that Jesus is getting at.
Yeah. I think it has to go to the heart behind it and understanding that if I'm really desiring to fast and I'm physically unable to do it, then again, like starting with prayer and asking the Lord, like, what is it that I could surrender in this? And maybe it's having a whole day of eating multo meal with nothing added to it, but just something that's very bland, very unsatisfying, but it does what it needs to do for your body. So maybe it's picking something that is not a delight to eat and is really only function for you, and giving up things that taste good, giving up, the process of thinking about what you're going to eat and the joy of seeing all the different colors and flavors and all of that. Like maybe it's approaching it from a different direction and understanding, okay, physically my body is such that it needs food, or I become sick, whether it be mentally sick or emotionally sick, or physically sick. And so how can I meet my basic need here, but not find delight in it?
Yeah, because God is the one who's going to fill that delight and meet our basic needs.
Yeah, and understanding that we're strengthened by pain that requires perseverance. And so when we have to persevere through things that are unpleasant and our focus is on God, we're strengthened in that.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask some questions here.
Oh, you're going to become the questioner again.
Yeah, this is going to be like a quick question round.
Rapid fire. Ready?
Here's one question that was sent in I want to ask about. So, Vince, you gave 6 purposes, biblical purposes for fasting. Do you mind reminding us of those? Because this question has to do with that.
Kirsten, you have them written down. Can you just read them?
Yep. We fast to strengthen our prayer.
That was the overarching one.
We fast to express repentance and grief over sin. We fast to plead for protection. We fast to express sorrow. We fast to seek help in pursuit of new ministry. And we don't fast for the approval of man.
All right.
So here's the question. We see there's a story in the New Testament about Jesus' disciples trying to cast out a demon, but they're unable to. When Jesus gets there, Jesus says that sort of demon is only able to come out by prayer and fasting. So might that be a 7th purpose for fasting, to cast out demons?
Great question. Do you have an answer, or do you want me to give us that?
Hey, this isn't my question.
Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah. Thanks for sending in that question.
Yeah.
So that's in Mark 9, I think it is. I'm trying to look at it. Mark 9. And it's an interesting question because it has actually to do with the language that's used in the New Testament. And in many of the manuscripts, it actually says this type of demon is not able to be cast out without prayer.
Period.
And fasting, the words "and fasting," are in some of the manuscripts, but not in a majority of them. And so some translations may use the "and prayer" through prayer and fasting. Many would say that it's an idiom, so it's a way to say something that means just a deeper dependence on God. So you could say it this way, that this type of demon is not able to be cast out without a deeper dependence on God. So it's an idiom, a way of saying something like that. So I don't know that I would add it as another category. I would probably lump it in with one of the other categories that we've already listed and say it's a way that we're pleading with God for protection. Maybe it fits that category. A way of pleading with God for a potential upcoming ministry that he's calling us into, a nearness to God. So I don't know if I'd add another category or say it's a piece of that God's drawing us in and saying some of these works that I am accomplishing, using us to do that, must be dependent upon me, not you. So he's asking us to rearrange our thinking and to fix our attention on him.
I wonder if a piece of that, I'm not pushing against you, I'm just wondering out loud.
You can push.
No,
all
I
day.
wonder though, like when you step into other cultures that are not Western, like I'm thinking of places like Africa or in the East, like there's a much more sensitive understanding of or sensitivity to spiritual, the spiritual realm. And so I wonder if, actually I'm quite certain that if that same question were asked in a culture that had a greater sensitivity to the spiritual realm, I imagine the answer would be quite different. And so I wonder if that is a piece of what fasting and prayer is a part of, but it's not something that we experience or see very often in our Western culture, whether it be that we're just really unaware of the spiritual battle that's going on, or we're hardened to it,
right.
Or I don't know how to describe that, but I don't feel comfortable landing on that's not a piece of fasting, because I do think that as you dive into other cultures, you are going to see a lot of that still today.
Yeah, but yes. But I would say the reverse is probably true, that if you went to an area that wasn't Western, to say, hey, you should pray and fast about materialism, they would say, I don't even know what you mean by that. I don't know what that's about. That's a spiritual, it's a heart level leaning that we have, that we would say in the West, I'm going to take some time devoted to prayer and fasting about my real struggle with materialism and seek God's help in his nearness here and freeing me from this. So I think but that's spiritual too. And also the spiritual realm, like demons and those sorts of things are as well. But so maybe a category, what would the category be? Help me with a category. What kind of category would you say that is? Seeking God's help in, one of them I listed was protection. Seeking God's help in freedom from, I don't know,
maybe
bondage.
Yeah, freedom from bondage, freedom from, I don't know, sin. It's not necessarily sin and temptation, but freedom from
the effects of sin and temptation in our world.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. What one of them is a repentance from.
Express repentance and grief.
Yeah, so it could be added to that. I'm not trying to say those 6 categories are the only ones. There might be others.
Yeah, I was reading through Jesus in the wilderness and just trying to think through, because your point of we fast to seek help in pursuit of new ministry. And as I was thinking about that, I was just thinking that there's probably a lot of people that think, well, I would never fast for that because I'm not stepping into new ministry. And yet I think that Jesus fasted for 40 days before he stepped into his new ministry, but he also fasted for 40 days before he stepped into being tempted by Satan and being exposed to that temptation. And so I think there's got to be a piece of fasting that helps us resist sin and temptation. There has to, we see that with Jesus, that he was able to resist the temptation of the enemy, very direct stuff. because he had prepared his heart through fasting. And so, it just got me thinking, like, maybe a sub point of that is if there are people that struggle with habitual sin, if there are things in our lives that we just can gain no victory over, no matter how hard we try and how often we pray, like maybe the starting point is actually fasting and prayer. Like maybe it's coming before the Lord and fasting and really asking for victory in this place rather than just prayer. Because I think there's something in fasting that brings us to a point of a deeper dependence on who God is and his work in our lives.
Yeah, and in that way, this was a question we had when we were having lunch together as a staff. Somebody asked this question, is it always wrong to talk to other people about the fast that we're doing? Or can we invite someone in to fast with us? Is that wrong because then they know that we're fasting? Is that what Jesus is getting at? So I would say to that, Jesus is not explicitly saying that we cannot talk about the ways in which we're fasting or that we are fasting unless it's trying to draw attention to ourselves. That's what he's getting at, the hard issue of trying to draw attention to yourself in your righteousness. But in that way, Kirsten, as you're talking about someone who has some habitual sin that they're seeking God's provision and freedom for, I think it's extremely appropriate to invite someone else in to say, could you pray and fast with me that I would be freed from this? And in that, your heart is right. You're not looking for attention. You're asking someone to join you in that. You're asking other people to labor in prayer and devotion to God on your behalf. So I think there is an appropriate place for asking others to join in a fast. Betty, you were saying that you've had friends or roommates ask you to join in that as well. And I think that fits along with what Jesus is asking of us here. It's not something that crosses that line of I'm doing this for my own, recognition.
Yeah, and in this particular passage, Jesus must be referring to a lifestyle here then, because in a moment where we need to cast out a demon, I'm probably not going to say, wait a minute, so I can go fast for the next day, and then I'm going to come back and try to cast this out. Like, that's not something you do in the moment.
Right.
And so it must be referring to some sort of dependence or lifestyle leading up to that point, to where then you're able to cast out a demon.
Yeah.
Or could it be that after you've fasted, you're more aware of those things, that there's a spiritual sensitivity in you that makes you more aware of the battles that you're actually seeing. And so it's not that you're necessarily preparing to go cast out a demon, but your heart is prepared. And so in that preparation, God then gives you a deeper level of understanding of things that maybe you didn't actually see before.
There's a little bit of mystery here in how our physical bodies are connected to our spiritual selves.
So you're not a Gnostic.
I'm not a Gnostic.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks for that clarification. So like when I'm hungry, my spiritual self is affected, my attitudes, those sorts of things. And so when we deprive ourselves of food and we feel those visceral hungers, we're starting to bend those away from ourselves in a sense. Like there's something good about, this is going to sound less spiritual, but just the discipline itself. In a right heart, we're able to start to control might not be the right word, but using something spiritual to also affect us physically. So it goes back both ways, doesn't it? Like I'm not taking in some physical food, it's affecting me physically for a spiritual reason of nearness to God. But that nearness to God is also helping me then go back the other way and affect me physically in some ways. So curbing some desires, learning how to go without. Maybe there is a sense of sensitivity to a spiritual realm that God by his grace enables. Those two things back and forth are fascinating to me, and I think fasting may get at some of that, some of those connections there.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, I'm going to ask two more questions and then our final question. So here we go. This is rapid fire.
That was real rapid. That last
that one was not rapid. That one was slow fire. Here's a question, though. 1 Corinthians 7, Paul talks about a married couple abstaining from sex for a time, for a spiritual benefit. Could that also then be a form of fasting, or is that talking about something different?
No. Next question.
Okay, that was very rapid.
Just joking.
Thoughts?
Sorry, I was preparing my quick, funny answer. What? Say the question again.
1 Corinthians 7, Paul talks about a married couple abstaining for sex for
Yeah.
a limited period of time for a spiritual good. Is that not also a form of fasting, or is that something different?
Not in its technical sense of fasting. I think it's a form of setting aside or abstaining from a good gift from God for a greater purpose. But fasting specifically is about food. I was talking to Cassie about this earlier this week, and I think she had heard this from somewhere. So
About what part?
just hold on. Let me finish.
Okay.
Let me finish. About fasting. Okay, settle down. And I think she had heard it from someone else too, that when we start talking about fasting from other things, it gets off of what fasting really is. Because you would never go in to get your cholesterol checked, and the person at the lab say, "Have you fasted today?" before your blood draw. You say, "Yeah, I haven't looked at my phone all day."
Yeah.
They're talking about food. So it's understood that fasting is from food. So what Paul is getting at is not a fast necessarily in 1 Corinthians 7. It's an abstinence from a good gift from God for a greater purpose for a time. But that greater purpose is not meant to be the thing that we stay on. We're to return. We're to break that abstinence instead of break that fast. Break that abstinence as well.
Okay, good.
Rapid fire.
Last question. Are you all familiar with some resources you could share if people want to learn more about fasting?
I mean, I listened to a series of podcasts, and it's from a church that's maybe theologically a little different than ours, not radically different, but it's called Practicing the Way, and they have a series of 4 podcasts that were on fasting, and they were really helpful for me as I was kind of beginning to dive into fasting and better understand it. And they're godly people who love Jesus, and so take it for what it is. But it was super helpful for me.
I don't know if I would directly have resources. Habits of Grace was actually one of the first things that I read that did kind of reveal to me what fasting is really meant for and about. But I also have, and maybe this isn't a good reference, maybe someone's read this here, I own A Hunger for God by John Piper, and I've read a page of it 2 years ago, but I just got it off the shelf today because I want to read it actually now. But that's a reference that I want to explore.
That was going to be the book that I would recommend. John Piper's Hunger for God. You can get all of his books free on Desiring God, I think. So if you read online, you can get them. Outside of that, I mean, there's some articles, but I don't have any specifically in mind right now. Yeah. Thanks for your question. That was rapid. When we have no resources, it's rapid.
My last question. What do you see of God in here that raises your affections for him? Matthew 6:16 through 18.
I think the thing that jumps out right away is the very discipline of fasting. I gotta get my brain around this for a second before I speak it. The very act of fasting is a call to abstain from a good gift that God has given us for a greater purpose, to see more of him. The fact that he's a God that gives us good gifts to begin with, like food and taste buds. He could have made us like a tree that just takes in nutrients from the soil and probably doesn't really enjoy that, but just does because that's what it does. But he didn't. He gave us good gifts to taste and delight in food. And the call to abstain from that, to see more of him, I think just reminds me that he's given that good gift to begin with.
Yeah, good.
They're fighting back and forth on who's going to speak first.
I think for me, there's parts of Christianity that we're called to do that are just hard. And fasting is hard, and it feels often like an uphill battle. It's not something necessarily that's a delight all the time, but it disciplines me. And I think that we're free to practice and fail the disciplines that God has called us to do. Like this is a discipline that we're called to do, and yet we're also free within that to try and fail or to just all out miss it. And yet there's opportunity to grow in that. And so I think just seeing the grace and mercy of God, that he gives us these disciplines that are best for us.
Mm.
And yet he doesn't discipline us when we miss them. But he's patient with us as we learn to do hard things.
Yeah, good. Betty?
I think for me, it's very similar to what I was saying last week with prayer, just that it is designed as a gift to be able to draw near to the Lord, and that he has that desire for us to be able to do that. And I honestly think for me, who is someone who likes to have direct formulas for certain things, I think it is beautiful that this is not a formula for us to receive like God's favor and blessing, but just that it is an opportunity to be able to draw near to him, because I think there's just freedom in knowing those things and not like holding so tightly to that, but just recognizing the beauty in it. That's not just, oh, here's what you have to do in this specific way for this specific thing, but that there's something deeper that comes from that too.
Yeah, what blows my mind here is that Jesus is helping us as his followers engage in fasting in such a way where we receive the nearness of God, and not engage in such a way where the reward is shallow. It's just attention from other people. It's for our good. And so Jesus is giving this teaching because he loves us. And like we've been saying, it's a gift and a grace from God to be able to do. That's a good God who wants us to receive nearness to him. I think that's the only Christian God as well. I don't think there's other gods around this world that do that kind of thing.
Good. I'm glad that you've landed there. I'm glad it has taken this long for us to land there.
It's the uniqueness of the one true God. All right. Next week, we're going to keep on moving on in Matthew chapter 6. So please read ahead. We are, what are the verses? 19 through 24 next week. Chapter 6, 19 through 24. All right. Love you. Have a great week. Bye.